The first recording was never meant to be heard. It was discovered months later, buried in the audio logs of a small bedroom monitor. A faint, almost inaudible whisper. Not loud enough to wake a sleeping child. Not clear enough to be understood. But unmistakably not a child's voice. It began at exactly 3:17 a.m. And it said something no one in that house had ever spoken before. The Reyes family never believed in anything supernatural. They lived in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of the city, in a modest two-story home with white walls and a narrow backyard. Nothing about the house stood out. No history of violence. No rumors. No previous tenants who left in a hurry. Everything about it was ordinary. Luis Reyes worked as a mechanic. His wife, Daniela, taught at a local primary school. Their only daughter, Sophia, had just turned 6 years old. She was quiet, observant, and unusually attached to her belongings. She had a small collection of toys, but there was one she never let out of her sight: the doll. It had been a birthday gift from Daniela's sister. A porcelain-faced doll with glassy blue eyes, long synthetic hair, and a soft fabric body. It wore a pale yellow dress stitched with small flowers. Nothing about it seemed strange at first. It looked like something bought from an ordinary shop. Sophia named it Elena. From the moment she received it, the doll became part of her routine. She spoke to it constantly. She carried it from room to room. She even insisted it be placed beside her pillow at night. At first, Daniela found it endearing. Children often form attachments to toys. It was harmless, comforting even. But after a few weeks, the way Sophia interacted with the doll began to change. She no longer spoke to it like a toy. She spoke as if she were listening. Daniela first noticed it one evening while preparing dinner. Sophia was sitting alone in the living room, the doll resting upright on her lap. She wasn't playing. She wasn't moving. She was just staring. Daniela paused in the kitchen doorway, watching her daughter quietly. Sophia's head tilted slightly, as though reacting to something only she could hear. Then she nodded. Slowly. Okay, Sophia said softly. Daniela stepped forward. Okay, what? Sophia turned, startled. For a moment, her expression seemed distant, almost confused. Elena said I should wait, she replied. Daniela forced a small smile. Wait for what? Sophia looked down at the doll, then back at her mother. She didn't say. That night, Daniela mentioned it to Luis. He shrugged it off. She's 6, he said. Kids imagine things. It's normal. Daniela wanted to believe that. For a while she did. But the incidents continued. Sophia began waking up at odd hours. Not crying. Not frightened. Just awake. Sitting upright in her bed, the doll positioned carefully in front of her. Listening. One night, Luis decided to check on her. It was just after 3 in the morning. He had woken up to use the bathroom and noticed a faint glow under Sophia's bedroom door. He pushed it open quietly. Sophia was sitting on the floor. The room was dim, lit only by a small night lamp. The doll was placed directly across from her, facing her. And Sophia was speaking. Not loudly, not clearly, but steadily. Luis stood in the doorway, trying to understand what she was saying. The words didn't make sense. Some sounded like fragments of sentences. Others weren't words at all. They were sounds. Soft, rhythmic, almost deliberate. Sophia, Luis said gently. She stopped immediately. Her head turned slowly toward him. What are you doing? He asked. Sophia blinked, as if waking from a dream. Talking. To who? She looked down at the doll again. Elena. Luis stepped into the room and picked up the doll. It felt heavier than he expected. Not by much, but enough to notice. It's late, he said. You should be sleeping. Sophia didn't argue. She climbed back into bed without protest. Luis placed the doll on the small chair near her desk and turned off the lamp. As he closed the door, he heard Sophia whisper something. He couldn't make it out, but it didn't sound like a good night. The next morning, Sophia complained that Elena was upset. Daniela asked why. Because you moved her, Sophia said. Daniela frowned. Moved her where? From the bed. Daniela exchanged a look with Luis. He had told Sophia about moving the doll. She doesn't like sitting alone, Sophia added. Daniela forced another smile. It's just a doll, sweetheart. Sophia shook her head. No, she said quietly. She talks. That was the first time Daniela felt something shift inside her. Not fear.
Not yet.
But something close. A few days later, Daniela decided to check the baby monitor recordings. They had installed it years ago, when Sophia was still a toddler. They rarely used it anymore, but it was still active, recording audio through the night. Daniela wasn't sure what she expected to find. Maybe proof that Sophia was talking in her sleep. Maybe nothing at all. She scrolled through the recordings and selected one from the previous night. At first, there was only silence. The soft hum of the room. Occasional movement from the bedsheets. Then, at 3:17 a.m., a faint sound emerged. A whisper. Daniela leaned closer to the screen, increasing the volume. The whisper came again.
Low.
Raspy. Not quite human. It wasn't Sophia. Daniela listened again, her breath growing shallow. The voice didn't form clear words. It moved in fragments, like something struggling to shape language. And then Sophia's voice responded.
Soft. Calm.
Yes, she said. Daniela froze. The recording continued. The whisper came again, slightly louder this time. Sophia answered once more. No, she doesn't know. Daniela stopped the recording. Her hands were trembling. She called Luis immediately. He listened to the audio twice. Then a third time. It's interference, he said finally. Maybe from another device. But his voice lacked conviction. That night, they decided to keep Sophia's door slightly open. Just in case. At 3:17 a.m., Daniela woke up.
She didn't know why.
The house was silent. But something felt wrong. She sat up slowly, listening. Then she heard it. A whisper.
Faint. Distant.
Coming from Sophia's room. Daniela stood, her heart pounding, and stepped into the hallway. The door was slightly ajar. The whisper continued. She pushed the door open gently. Sophia was sitting up in bed. The doll was in her hands. And the whisper was coming from the doll. Not from Sophia. Not from anywhere else. From the doll. Daniela couldn't breathe. The sound was unmistakable now. A low, strained voice, like dry air passing through something that shouldn't produce sound. Sophia tilted her head, listening. Then she nodded. I understand, she said. Daniela stepped back, her foot hitting the wall behind her. The sound stopped instantly. Sophia turned. For a brief moment, her eyes didn't look like her own. They were too still, too focused. Mom, she said. The voice was normal again. The whisper was gone. Daniela rushed forward and took the doll from her hands. It was cold, unnaturally cold. She placed it on the desk and pulled Sophia into her arms. It's okay, she whispered, though she didn't believe it. Sophia clung to her. Elena is angry, she said quietly. Daniela didn't respond. She just held her tighter. The next morning, Luis suggested getting rid of the doll. Daniela agreed immediately. They didn't tell Sophia. While she was at school, Luis placed the doll in a sealed box and drove it to a disposal site on the edge of town. He didn't look at it again. When Sophia returned home, she noticed immediately. Where is she? She asked. Daniela hesitated. We put her away. Sophia's expression darkened. She doesn't like that. Daniela felt a chill run through her. She's just a toy, Sophia. Sophia shook her head slowly. No, she whispered. She's not. That night, Sophia refused to sleep. She cried for hours, repeating the same words over and over. She's alone. At some point, exhaustion took over, and she finally fell asleep. Daniela stayed beside her, watching. The room was quiet.
Too quiet.
At exactly 3:17 a.m., a sound came from the hallway. A soft thud. Daniela turned her head. The bedroom door was opening.
Slowly.
On its own. Daniela's breath caught in her throat. The hallway was dark. Empty. But something was there. She could feel it. Then, from the floor just beyond the doorway, a faint scraping sound. Something being dragged. Closer. Daniela stood up, her body frozen in place. The sound stopped just outside the room. For a moment, there was silence. Then the whisper returned, closer than ever. And this time, it spoke clearly. Not to Sophia. To Daniela. You shouldn't have taken her. Daniela did not move. Her body refused to respond, as if something had locked her in place between the doorway and the bed. The air in the room felt heavier, dense, pressing against her chest with each shallow breath. The voice had not come from Sophia. It had not come from the hallway. It had come from somewhere low, near the floor, near the threshold. Daniela forced herself to look down. At first, she saw nothing but darkness. The faint spill of light from the night lamp did not reach far enough into the hall to reveal anything clearly. But then, a shape.
Small.
Still. Resting just beyond the doorframe. The outline was unmistakable.
The doll.
Daniela's throat tightened. That was impossible. Luis had taken it. She had watched him leave with it sealed inside a box. He had driven miles away. And yet it was here. Lying on its side, its pale dress slightly wrinkled, its glassy eyes reflecting just enough light to give the illusion that it was already watching her. Daniela took a step back. The floor beneath her creaked. And the doll moved. Not quickly. Not suddenly. But undeniably. It shifted just slightly, as though adjusting its position. As though something inside it had become aware. Daniela covered her mouth to stop herself from screaming. Behind her, Sophia stirred in bed. "Mom," she murmured weakly. Daniela turned immediately, rushing to her side. "It's okay," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "Stay in bed." Sophia's eyes fluttered open. She looked toward the door. And smiled. A small, quiet smile. "She came back," she said. Daniela shook her head. "Don't look at it." But Sophia's gaze remained fixed on the doorway. "She said she would," Sophia continued softly. Daniela pulled the blanket higher around her daughter. "No more talking," she said. "Go back to sleep." Sophia didn't argue. She simply closed her eyes again, still smiling faintly. Daniela did not turn back toward the door. She couldn't. Instead, she sat beside the bed until morning, her back to the hallway, her ears straining for any sound. The whisper did not return, but the silence was worse, because it felt like something was waiting, watching. When the sun finally rose, Daniela gathered enough courage to look. The doorway was empty. The doll was gone. Luis didn't believe her at first. He searched the house, checking every room, every corner, every closet. Nothing. No sign of the doll. "You're tired," he said gently. "You didn't sleep. Your mind is playing tricks on you." Daniela didn't argue. She didn't have the strength, but something inside her knew what she had seen. That afternoon, Sophia refused to leave her room. Daniela checked on her several times. Each time, Sophia was sitting in the same spot on the floor, facing the corner near her bed.
Talking.
Not loudly, not clearly, but consistently. And each time Daniela entered, Sophia would stop immediately. The third time, Daniela didn't announce herself. She stood just outside the door, listening. Sophia's voice was soft, almost rhythmic. "I didn't tell them," she whispered. "I promise." There was a pause. Daniela leaned closer. A second voice answered.
Faint. Strained.
The same voice from the recording. From the night before. Daniela felt her stomach twist. She pushed the door open. Sophia turned sharply. The room fell silent. "What are you doing?" Daniela asked, her voice tight. Sophia hesitated. Then she pointed. To the corner. Daniela followed her finger. And there it was. The doll. Sitting upright against the wall. Daniela's vision blurred for a moment. "How did that get here?" she whispered. Sophia didn't answer. She just stared at it. Daniela stepped forward slowly. Each step felt heavier than the last. The doll's face was tilted slightly upward now, as if it had been placed deliberately. As if it had chosen where to sit. Daniela reached down and picked it up. The same unnatural cold spread through her hands. This time, she didn't hesitate. She walked straight out of the room, down the hallway, and into the kitchen. Luis was standing by the sink. She placed the doll on the counter with a force that made it topple slightly. "It came back," she said. Luis stared at it. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he looked at Daniela. Did you bring it back? Her expression answered for her.
No.
Silence settled between them. Heavy, uncomfortable, unexplainable. Luis picked up the doll. It looked harmless in his hands. Just an object. Just a toy. But even he seemed unsure now. I'll get rid of it again, he said. No, Daniela replied quickly. Luis frowned. What? We don't move it again, she said. Not like that. Why not? Daniela hesitated. Because she didn't know how to explain what she felt. That moving it had been a mistake. That something had reacted. That something had followed. We need help, she said quietly. Luis exhaled, running a hand over his face. You think this is what? Something religious. I don't know what it is, Daniela admitted. But it's not normal. Luis looked at the doll again. For the first time, doubt was visible in his eyes. That evening, Daniela contacted a local church. According to parish records, the initial call was logged as a domestic concern involving unusual behavior. No mention of possession. No mention of anything supernatural. Just concern. A priest was assigned to visit the following day. His name was Father Gabriel Varela. He arrived in the early afternoon. He was in his late 50s, calm in demeanor, with a steady voice and an observant gaze. He did not rush to conclusions. He listened. Daniela explained everything. The recordings, the whispers, the movements, Sophia's behavior. Father Gabriel did not interrupt. When she finished, he asked only one question. Where is the object now? Daniela led him to Sophia's room. The doll was exactly where she had left it, sitting upright on the small chair beside the desk. Father Gabriel stood in the doorway for a moment before entering. He observed the room carefully. Then he approached the doll. Up close, he studied its face, its eyes, its posture. He did not touch it immediately. Instead, he turned to Sophia. Do you speak with this doll often? He asked gently. Sophia nodded. What does she say? Sophia hesitated. Then she looked at the doll, as if asking for permission. Father Gabriel noticed. You can tell me, he said softly. Sophia's voice dropped to a whisper. She says things about before. Before what? Before we came here. Daniela felt a chill. What kind of things? Father Gabriel asked. Sophia swallowed. She says she was here first. The room fell silent. Father Gabriel finally reached out and picked up the doll. For a brief moment, his expression changed. Only slightly, but enough. He felt it. The cold. He turned the doll over in his hands, examining the seams, the stitching, the material. Then he placed it back on the chair. Has it ever moved on its own in front of you? He asked. Daniela nodded slowly. Father Gabriel looked at Luis. And you? Luis hesitated. No, he admitted. Father Gabriel turned back to Daniela. Any changes in your daughter's behavior beyond what you described? Daniela thought for a moment. She doesn't sleep well, she said. And sometimes she doesn't feel like herself. Father Gabriel nodded. He reached into his bag and removed a small vial. Holy water. He stepped closer to the doll. And without warning, he sprinkled a few drops across its face. Nothing happened. For a moment, everything remained still. Then Sophia gasped. Daniela turned. Sophia was clutching her head. It hurts, she whispered. Father Gabriel stepped back immediately. What hurts? He asked. She's angry, Sophia said, her voice shaking. The doll remained motionless. But the temperature in the room seemed to drop.
Subtly.
Unnaturally. Father Gabriel's expression hardened. He turned to Daniela and Luis. I will need to document this, he said. And I will return. Return. Daniela repeated. Yes, he said calmly. Because this is not over. He paused, looking once more at the doll. And then quietly. This was never just a toy. That night, Sophia refused to let anyone touch the doll. She held it tightly, refusing to let it out of her arms, even as she lay down to sleep. Daniela stayed beside her again. Luis remained in the hallway, unable to shake the unease that had settled deep within him. At 3:17 a.m., the whisper returned. But this time, it didn't stay in Sophia's room.
It moved.
Through the walls. Through the hallway.
Soft.
Persistent. searching. And as Daniela sat frozen beside her daughter, she realized something with growing dread. The voice was no longer speaking only to Sophia. It was learning, listening, reaching. And somewhere in the darkness of the house, something answered back.